Hello, Night Vale. It's been a few days since I've spoken to you, though I can't say that with complete certainty. Sometimes, I don't think you ever really leave. I don't think you're really you, a singular entity. I feel you, watching, waiting, simply existing, never not. You've always been there. You've always watched me, have always waited, just out of my field of vision. Don't worry. One day, I'll let my guard down, and you can add me to you. But until then, this is Delilah Woods. Welcome to another installment of Living in Night Vale. I decided I'm going to start doing this a little differently. I ran into a listener yesterday. I can only assume they were talking about the show because as I reached for my boxed ramen at the grocery store, their old and weathered hands shot out from the aisle on the other side of the shelf. Their nails dug into my skin, and while everything on the other side seemed veiled in shadow, their voice rang clear, as if it was whispered directly to me. We listen. We laugh. You forget your place, child. You tell tales without consequence, and the world will catch up to you soon and bury you beneath itself. I always appreciate constructive criticism, so I took it to heart. Instead of updating you at the end of the day, I think I'll take you with me. We'll see how it works, listeners, so I'll start with what happened this morning. Firstly, I finally found a building besides my apartment itself in the complex with a fixed location, and I'll admit I'm lucky too, the laundry room. I had one outfit left that could be deemed socially wearable, the rest grumbling and growling within my laundry hamper, hissing when I approached, and biting my hands the whole walk to the laundry room. I have no sponsors yet, so this isn't advertised, but I'll say this now. Arm and Hammer. It puts the fear of old, malevolent gods who hunger once more for reverence and blood sacrifice right into them. But, upon finding my way to the laundry room, I happened upon two figures. One familiar and one not. Firstly, I noticed a woman. She sat next to one of the washers, a book in hand, and glasses balanced on the tip of her nose. She was average. Everything about her was so remarkably average that it jostled me. Her hair, an average length. She was not old, nor young, but simply middle-aged. She was not ugly, nor beautiful, but average. She was not horribly loud, nor soft-spoken. Simply average. The room was heavy with her normalcy, and for just a moment it seemed to suffocate me, intangible mediocrity, and then the landlord entered. His large, heavily robed form squeezed through the entrance of the laundry room and helped disperse some of the impressive averageness. His looming form shuffled over to a washer, a few away from my own, similarly marked and etched with runes like you would find on one of your personal bloodstones. Though, I think I heard something about them being banned. And then, something even more jarring than the average woman reading her average book for an average woman her average age. The landlord removed his cloak. A man stood in front of me. He loomed as he had before, but not. He had to have been my age, somewhere in that undefiable college range that could be anywhere from a gifted elementary schooler to a dedicated elder. His hair was messy and shock white, and his eyes were black and directed at me. I froze, listeners. As I tend to under the landlord's gaze, he watched me for a moment, judging me, observing me with such scrutiny I once again forgot how to breathe, and only when I felt like I might choke he looked away and stuffed the robe, which I can now tell was simply a large blanket with the Night Vale Boy Scouts pattern within turned inside out, and he shoved it into the washing machine. He lumbered his tall and lanky body over to a chair, closed his eyes, let his head fall down, and not even moments later snoring could be heard from his body, shaking the windows on every inhale. I, for my part, did not wish to disturb him, nor have my body deny me sweet breaths of desert air, and so I simply focused on the laundry. My hands and arms already littered in scratches and bite marks from the unruly clothes, but they hung on for dear life as I shook the hamper into the bottomless pit that was the washer, and listened to their cries become frenzied shrieks as I poured my favorite detergent into the depths below. Arm & Hammer. It cleans. It sanitizes. It purifies. It sanctifies. I'll still have some time here. The laundry will only get angry once it pulls its way up from the washer, and I'd rather not try to talk to you while I wrestle it back into the dryer, in which it is placated until it rebels once more. So, I'll see you soon. Hello, listeners! I'm back. That was a little longer than I expected, but I decided to run some errands before I came back to you. As I've told you, I've been interested in taking classes at the community college, in addition to wanting to understand the ancient cries and sing-song chants of my phone, whose androgynous voice, once commanded cultures long gone, now tries to converse with me, as I sit on the couch and shovel cereal into my face, tasting sugar and blood from the roof of my mouth. But I figure since I'm trying out this whole audio journal thing, I could probably take a class or two in journalism. It turns out I can. The receptionist said nothing when I arrived and introduced myself. She simply threw her head back, screaming, structureless and echoing into the void above, and while doing so slid me enrollment plans. I sat in the reception area for some time, filling out paperwork by staring at my choices for several seconds until it imprinted upon the paper, like a stamp, since writing utensils are banned. After my selections, I got to review the payment plans, and I have to say, if I'm being honest, I was worried. But none of these payment plans required money. A few of them were printed in unintelligible script, old, cursed runes that thrummed and pulsed and beckoned me to read aloud in a language I did not know. But alas, I did not know it. I was considering a simple plan of 3 gallons of blood over a 6-month period, to be renewed as long as I attended, but then I saw a gem amongst gems. A renewable plan that only cost 1 precious memory to be taken when I attempted to recall it on my deathbed. Well, listeners, I'd say it was a steal. My memories are already foggy and vague, always running away when I need them most, retreating to the bunker until the hunt has stopped. So, I start classes in the fall. That will give me time to find a job and work out my schedule with an employer. I can tell you, things are really starting to look up. And I think there's something about the landlord. Something that just... Oh, I'm sorry. I have to take this. I'll be back in a moment. Listeners, oh my void and stars and ancient gods best forgotten, I have an interview. I just got called about an interview. I recorded it when I figured out what the call was. Listen.
This is Miss Woods. Come for Miss Woods. Give us Miss Woods.
This is she. How can I help you? I'm surprised you got this number. I didn't think one existed.
We know the hidden truths of what cannot be known. We want more than what can be given. We want you.
Wait, is this an interview? Are you calling me about an interview?
Mortal words are clumsy and staggering, haphazardly trying to make your fate known, but your crude language suffices. And just when the moon smiles and your heart stops, we will be waiting at the town hall, and your sage and sharp as knife, a match to light the way, and your blood and skin and hair bring 3 forms of federal identification.
Of course, 3 a.m. Thank you so much. I'll be there. Oh, listeners, this is fantastic. Sure, the time is a little odd, but at this point, I can't be choosy. It's good luck that I decided to do laundry today. The scratches have already scabbed over, and I can cover them without worry of them bleeding through. Though, I will say, I had a little bit of an odd interaction before I could start recording again. While I was making my way back to the complex, a man bumped into me. He was... perfect. A stark contrast to the woman who was average. He was anything but. He had perfect hair, perfect teeth, and a perfect look of fear. No, concern on his face. He asked me if I could see the mountain to my right, and if I knew what a mountain was. Now, listeners, while I said yes, I could see it. And that yes, I not only knew what a mountain was, but I had seen many more before this as I lived in a valley. I was surrounded by mountains, suffocating me, drowning me in heat and asphalt. So, while I answered yes to all these things, it barely occurred to me that the mountain had not been there on my walk too, nor had its blinking red light. But before I could ask, he left, arms full of scientific instruments and hair, oh so perfect. Between him and the woman so average that she was nothing but, I wonder what normal really is. If this social construct of conformity really has had enough weight behind it to be used at all. But I don't have to wonder, because I know I am not normal. I don't have to worry about something that I am not. Odd. It feels like something is wrong with my bookshelf, and I can't place it. A subtle change? A drastic change? Hard to know, but...
As many of you pointed out, we should have spent less time on the blinking light and more time expanding on the bit about the approaching masked army. So, there is now a great masked army coming towards us across the bone-covered plain.
I have to go. The radio just said something about an army. I need to go and figure out what he's talking about. Do you think this is going to mess with my interview? Hello, listeners. I'm sorry I sound in such a rush. I wasted a lot of time on this whole army business, and I walked all the way over to the mountain that I could no longer see, like it simply did not exist as it hadn't before. There was a gathering around it, the sea of people only broken by clean, single-file lines of enemy invaders politely asking for passage through. I was half ready, a little early I'll admit, but I was in no such state to be seen by a passing invading army of savages, that's for sure. I asked around and was told as calm as still bog water that the mountain, blinking light, and floodplains were simply a mirage. It happened all the time. They were in a desert after all, and despite the fact that I had seen many a mirage in my time back in that horrid valley, I simply accepted it. It made sense, especially when I was told that the man with the perfect hair, Carlos is his perfect name, was the one who figured it out. Well, I can't say I'm entirely positive, but I will say I'm glad that wasn't as much of an obstacle as it could have been. I had to rush my way home, though. I know I still have some time, a few hours, but I've always had bad anxiety. Ever since elementary school, I've always had panic attacks hard enough to make my bones shake. And the last thing I need tonight is the bone shakes. The bone shakes. On the way up, though, I had a talk with a remarkably average woman who lives a few doors down from me. She asked if I was okay, already wrapped up in her nighttime clothes. Nothing flashy, nothing ugly, just average. I explained that I was having anxiety over my mysterious interview, and then the remarkably average woman, whose name I learned to be Lynn Havens, offered to drive me there. She said she normally goes to bed around 10, a perfectly normal time, but she was willing to help out a neighbor. I told her I would pay gas. She smiled, she agreed, and went back to her room and told me to knock on the door when it was my time. I will be back after the interview, listeners. I'm going to finish getting ready and see if I can calm down my steadily rattling bones. I will tell you how it all went. Please, listeners, wish me luck. I know your bloodstone circles were banned, but even if you make a small sacrifice of your favorite childhood smell, add one article of clothing left over from an estranged lover, set fire to in a small bowl while the smoke fills your room, suffocating you in warmth and aromas that remind you of a better place, I would be very appreciative. I'll see you soon. Hello, please. Is anyone there? Listeners, I'm home. What an unexpected night this has become. I record this from my bed, sinking slowly into my mattress, further than I should sink, becoming encompassed by its softness, its fabric, its person-shaped stain. I am content. I am tired, so I will simply catch you up here before I am consumed. I think the interview went well. I was dropped off at City Hall by Lynn, who, with a yawn, asked me if I would be needing a ride home. I told her it was okay, and with a very normal wave and a very mediocre, average car, she drove away. I made my way to the doors of City Hall and was led to a room by a freckled child with curly hair and dead eyes. I sat in a black chair, at a black room, at a black table, and I waited. Soon, a man entered, and he sat with me. He asked me questions like where I went to school, previous skills, what my grandmother smelled like, if I had a chance to kill anyone with no consequence, who would it be? You know, normal interview questions. The interview lasted for about an hour. I answered more questions. They explained to me what my starting wage and responsibilities would be, and measured my will by resisting the temptation of warm cookies placed in front of me. But they can't get me. Everyone knows the cookies are filled with sleeping powder, and you'll be tossed into the pile of weak-willed applicants. Why I know that, I do not know. Either way, they left the room for a moment, and I heard a scream in the hallway. A loud, pained, desperate scream, and then silence. 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 The door opened a while after with the man who interviewed me, asking if I could start Monday. They agreed to work with my school schedule in the fall and set me off. Like I said this morning, things are really starting to look up. Starting Monday, I'll be a receptionist and the errand runner for city council. I'll be doing things like... and... I'll be able to go to... and it might even help out at the college, especially if I can get a... And, when I arrived home after the walk, there was a small present in front of my door. A blue tin, one would assume is filled with sewing supplies, and the warm smell of your grandmother was in fact filled with shortbread cookies. A small note rested inside. Congratulations on your job. They are my favorite, especially when they are older. Your rent is still due middle of next month. Your landlord, Rowan Simon Sabaru. The note made me smile, as did the cookies. Though there's some concern, after I ate a whole paper cup full of them, I decided to peek about the tin. The expiration date was 40 years ago. The cookies tasted just fine, though, so I'll try not to worry about it. Or about how he knew I had an interview and a job. I will simply feel warm instead, that I have support from people around me already. But I'm tired. The exhaustion of suppressing the bone shakes from rattling my muscles to paste has taken a toll on me, and my every breath feels like the acidic twang of orange juice and toothpaste, and I'm all ready for the sweet embrace of sleep and the many duties that carries with it. As of last night, I only wake up once or twice a night with horrible visions of the great beyond, and my sheets have finally stopped smelling like antiseptic and cinnamon gum. I'm beginning to forge relationships with people, and when I breathe in that dry air, it's starting to feel like the breath of relief you take when you're finally home. The stars shine above me, tickling my still, slowly sinking body, and I don't know how much longer I can talk, so... Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Night Vale. Thank you, and good night. This is Delilah Woods, and I'll see you next time. Next time when you wait alone, standing with bare, frozen feet outside, unaware of why you came, but knowing you need to look toward the sky and dream of home. I'll be there, and you'll be happy. Hello, everyone. This is Cydney King. I'm the creator of Living in Night Vale, but not Welcome to Night Vale, which was created by Joseph Fink and Jeffery Cranor, produced by Joseph Fink, and voiced by Cecil Baldwin. This is a fan show, inspired and taking place in the world that is not mine, but something borrowed, hidden, coveted. I want to extend thanks out to everyone who listens to this, support its creation, and will begin to pave the way to my own original creations, with experience and hard work. Once more, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much. I'm excited to bring you more content, and eventually original content as well. Today's helpful advice from the man behind the convenience store. If you don't regularly forget that awful thing you've seen, you might not be able to stop remembering it one day. Remember to remove and wash your brain regularly.